Alright, so I know half of you clicked on this video just because it said giveaway in the title. Since I just hit Enderman 7, I'm going to give away my old Juju so I can buy a Terminator. I'll talk more about it later. Anyways, enjoy the video. So after I just recently sold my biggest investment, I finally had enough money to grind out Enderman Slayer 7. After asking around on the forums and in various communities, as well as practicing a lot myself, I've come up with a practical guide on how to kill tier 4 voidglooms and reach Enderman Slayer level 7. Now that I finally got there, I'm making this video to show everyone else how to do it themselves, and how it really isn't as hard as people make it seem. Alright, so I'm going to be splitting up this video into two different sections to make it easier to understand. The first section is going to be all about gear, what items you need, and how to get them. And the second section is going to be about the strategies you need to use during the boss to make it easier and faster. Alright, so for gear, there's quite a bit, so I'll do my best to try and go through each one and explain how to get it and why you need it. Alright, so the first few pieces of gear are going to be stuff that's absolutely required, like your Final Destination armor. For me, I just bought some Final Destination armor that's reforged in Necrotic with Wisdom 5, and had about 25,000 kills. This should be enough because you're going for mana and defense, so you should have enough mana with this to be completely fine. If you're dying too much, you can get some more kills, but around 25,000 kills should be fine. The next most important thing is the Hyperion. It should be a heroic Hyperion because, again, you only care about mana. Survivability really shouldn't be an issue, and if you really need it, you can just upgrade your Final Destination armor's kills some more instead of your Hyperion, because the mana from the Hyperion is one of the most important parts of this setup, and I'll get to that later. The next thing you really need is a good talisman bag. I have around 650 magical power. You probably don't need that much, but it is really nice to have. And obviously you should have it on some sort of intelligence reforge. I have sighted because I don't want to spend all the money on Bazaar, but either one should work. Alright, so the next thing is the Fire Veil wand. It's pretty cheap, so you might as well get one, and it does a lot of damage, and it makes clearing the Enderman a lot faster, because it costs almost no mana to use, and it will one-shot them if you're using the set bonus for your armor set. The next thing you absolutely need is the Wand of Atonement with Ultimate Wise 5. This thing is insane for healing. It will heal over 1,000 health over 7 seconds for almost no mana at all. You should always be using it throughout the boss because it's just so good. Alright, so the next thing you need is a sheep pet holding a bubblegum item, and this is really important because it'll make your overflux last twice as long, which is really useful for the boss because then you won't have to place it again and waste all your mana. Obviously this is to make it easier to spam your abilities, and it'll also make you do more damage, so it's a win-win. You can also get a wolf pet or a mythic enderman pet if you want to spawn the boss faster. It's nice, but it's not absolutely required, and I might as well just put it along with the sheep pet. Alright, so the next thing you want to get is an aspect of the void, because getting to the beacons is sometimes a challenge with the lasers in the way, and it's just nice to have. It's pretty cheap too, so you might as well have one. The next thing is a soul whip with mana steel 3. Now the way I use a soul whip is kind of different than a lot of people used to. You don't actually use the soul whip for that much mana regen, but I'll tell you why it's important later. But you should definitely have one. It's not too expensive compared to the rest of the setup, and it's very useful to have. The next thing is some M1 tank zombies in a Reaper Scythe. It doesn't actually have to be a Reaper Scythe, but it's pretty nice because you get 1 extra soul. You can get 3 instead of 2. And the tank zombies are just to clear the hits phase. Even after they nerfed it, it's still pretty good, and it works well enough that they won't die most of the time. So you should be fine. The next thing, this is kind of a no-brainer, an implosion belt. It's almost completely free and it increases your total damage by 25%. There's no reason why you shouldn't get this, it's just really good in general. And then after the implosion belt, we have the overflux or plasma flux if you can afford it. It's kind of expensive, but the 100% base mana regen is absolutely necessary, or you're going to run out of mana so quickly if you don't have a maxed out mana regen setup, which is probably billions of coins. So you really need to get an overflux if you want to do any of the tier 4s at all. And then finally, this one's kind of the hardest for most people, but people seem to skip out on the Ender artifact. It is absolutely necessary to have this. If you don't have it, you will die super fast, and people seem to think, oh, I can just do it. It's only 20% damage. 20% damage is a lot. That is thousands of DPS that you're taking off of the boss with one accessory, and it seriously helps a ton. This is the thing that got me over the hump personally, so you absolutely need the Ender artifact. You're just going to have to bite the bullet and spend the money, but it is totally worth it. Alright, and for the last few things that you don't absolutely need but are kind of nice, if you get a glowstone gauntlet or some other equipment with mana pool and mana regen on it, it does give you a bit of extra intel and regen, which is pretty convenient, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference. I just did it on the glowstone gauntlet to level 6 because it was really cheap and might as well. So I have this, and then finally the Withercloak sword in case you miss a beacon. If you're just good at the boss, you won't ever have to use this, but it's nice to have in your hotbar just as a last resort. Alright, so those are all the items, and now let's get into the strategies that'll actually let you complete the boss. So unlike a lot of things in this game, voidglooms are actually skill-based, so there's a lot of small things you can do to make it easier, as well as general knowledge that you'll need to know to make the boss actually doable. There is a pretty big learning curve when you're first starting out, but as you get used to it, your boss times will start to get better and better, and it'll become easier and easier. Alright, so for the first and probably one of the most important things, you should always have your Wand of Atonement and Fire Veil on while you're damaging the boss. It's just going to make you do more damage and heal faster, which obviously you want at all times, and they barely use any mana, so before you go in after each phase, you should always activate both of them like I'm doing here. Another really important thing to know is how to regen mana quickly and efficiently, because you need to use a lot of abilities during the fight, and if you don't, you're going to run out of mana really fast. So instead of using the Soul Whip constantly to regen mana, I feel like it's easier after a bunch of testing to just use the Soul Whip to keep yourself in combat, which activates the armor set bonus while holding your Hyperion to get a lot of mana regen quickly. You can see me doing this in the clip when I use the Soul Whip and then quickly swap to Hyperion and then wait a few seconds and then do it again to keep myself in combat and keep my mana numbers up. If you always make sure you hold your Hyperion when you're not doing anything, mana's a lot less of an issue because it regens a lot quicker. The same thing kind of goes to the next tip. You should place your Overflux when you spawn a boss and also place one when you finish a boss, so then you have enough mana while you're spawning it and while you're killing it, because spawning it actually takes a lot of mana even though it doesn't seem like it would. As for a few smaller tips, these are just kind of the most important. The boss does more damage in the hits phase than it does normally, so you should stay away from it and let your summons do all of the work for you. Another thing is that the lasers actually permanently reduce your healing for the rest of the fight if you get hit by them, so you want to be really conscious about not hitting those throughout the fight, because it'll make the ending portion with the heads a lot harder because they're going to do a lot more damage and your healing isn't going to be as effective. And finally, you should learn the HP thresholds for each phase. This is just so you don't get nuked by the lasers if you're standing too close. They're on the screen now. Just make sure that you look at the boss's health while you're fighting it, and when it gets close to one of these thresholds, just back off a little bit and let the boss go to the next phase. Alright, so about the giveaway I talked about earlier, I'm going to be giving away my almost fully maxed out Juju Shortbow, minus the Master Stars and a few Tier 7 enchants, in my Discord server right after this video goes live. So if you want to enter the giveaway, all you got to do is go to the link in the description, join my Discord, and enter. There's no requirements, and I'll probably be hosting more in the future, so you might want to check it out. Alright, if you made it this far, thank you so much for staying to the end. I honestly don't expect this video to get that many views because I haven't uploaded in literally 2 months. It's been so long. I'm sorry. I've been super busy, but hopefully I'll be able to get to more soon. I haven't quit Skyblock. I'm still here, and hopefully we'll do more videos in the future. See ya.